Wait, can everyone hear me? 1 second. Yes. Okay, cool. Welcome to another episode of Nansen Unsupervised. So this time I've got Luca with me of Pudgy Penguins, which I know very well, and also Maxine from Pulsr. So we're going to be discussing innovation in the NFT space, and then also what they're working on and how they ended up in their positions. So before we start, if you'd like to start leveling up your crypto and NFT analysis, check out the link in the description. We've got up to 40% off for a limited time. Make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on. We do office hours every Wednesday, unsupervised every Friday, and next week's episode is with Ledger from Up Only, which is very, very cool. And yeah, that's about it. So introduce both of you. Let's start with Maxine. How did you end up in your position? And what is an introduction of your background?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give the short version. I've been in the space since 2014, and originally I started my journey here building the world's first money transfer operator using Bitcoin. It was called BitSpark. It was a lot more in the financial space. I did that for about 6.5 years, scaled it to 7 different countries in Asia and Africa. But having started that company when I was like 20 years old, I just kind of changed a lot as a person and I was ready for new things. So I ended up leaving BitSpark, which was huge. At that time, it became a really big part of my identity. And I was like, I'm finally going to travel the world. And I went to Australia to visit some family and COVID hit. So I was like locked up in Australia for 2 years' time. But that was actually a blessing because at the time, NFTs were just gaining popularity. And I was seeing more and more need for NFTs being easily searchable, which then led to Pulsr and what we're doing now. So I don't know if I should go into like what Pulsr is, but that's basically what my journey so far and what I do is. I'm the architect and leader of Pulsr. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll do that right after. Let's introduce Luca quickly as well. So same thing, Luca. Who are you? How did you end up as CEO of Pudgy Penguins?
Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Luca Netz. I am the CEO of Pudgy Penguins. Before that, I was a Pudgy Penguin holder. And about 7 months ago, the opportunity came to purchase the project. And I felt like I had been building brands for the last 5-6 years and thought there was very few people that could take on the responsibility of being the CEO of the Penguins. So I stepped in and I've now given this and committed my life to it. And I'm excited to get on this ride. So yeah.
Yes, I'm also very excited. So I thought I'd frame it instead of just asking like what you both do and what both companies you do. I was going to ask like, what kind of gap in the market do you both feel like you're filling? So if we start with you, Luca, first, and then also I thought for you, Luca, so obviously you're filling like something not for the whole market in general, but do you feel like there's a responsibility as like running Penguins to push the market forward, or is that just a result of like the innovation that you do in Penguins, the market moves with it?
Yeah, so like from a Pudgy Penguin perspective, I feel like the project and the community and us as a team have a responsibility to really be the Trojan horse for the space. And so right now, crypto and NFTs, I feel like are really intimidating and it's still kind of taboo. And I think there's no greater way to really onboard the masses and get people excited about this technology than with cute little Pudgy Penguins. And so, a huge part of like our mission is to really like invade that market. And I think right now, a majority of NFT projects are kind of stuck in what I like to call the rat race. And so there's about 2 to 3 million Web3 users right now. And I think a lot of people are chasing for the same user base. And I have no interest in that, right? Like the way that our, acquisition is structured and the nature of our deal is like, we're in this for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Like there's no other way around it. And so for me, I have to think, what does the next generation of Web3 users look like? What is that new user base of that native audience going to be? And so for us, like a huge part of what we're trying to do is really make people fall in love with our IP from a top of the funnel perspective, and from the bottom of the funnel perspective, really educate them on what Web3 is and what NFTs are, and then eventually make them holders and consumers of the actual project.
Yeah, and I think I want to talk to you later about like this move into Web 2, because that's like a really big innovation, I guess, for Pudgy Penguins, especially like compared to others. And I'll ask you as well, like, why do you think others have kind of failed at that? But Maxine, firstly, what do you feel like you're filling in the market with Pulsr? And maybe if you could give an explanation of like what Pulsr does, why it's unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, I have to agree with Luca. There is kind of this issue with the NFT space right now with adoptability, and it's not that friendly, right? It's actually quite difficult to want to get involved. We're solving a different part of that aspect. We're solving the searchability of NFTs. So an example of that is that you might go onto a marketplace, an NFT marketplace, and you might put Pudgy Penguin owned by Stephen Curry. And this actually doesn't come up, even though this is information that maybe somebody has read on Google or in the news, right? So I think the interest for NFTs is definitely there because, you think about your friends, you hear a lot of hype about it, but when you try to search for it, nothing really comes up in a way that's meaningful. So what Pulsr does is that we're creating the largest open source data layer for NFTs so that they are easily searchable. And we have many different ways of doing this with our NFT metadata aggregation tools. But essentially what the community here is trying to solve is, okay, we have the NFT. So how can we then gather the information around this NFT that is constantly, taking over and compounding so that when this new person is interested in NFTs and searching for it, is that going to come up in their search results or not? And hopefully, improving their entire experience across the entire NFT ecosystem in itself.
Cool. So like for you, the knowledge aspect is like maybe the thing that onboards the next kind of generation into it. Is that what you feel?
Yeah, so I think like one thing, especially as an NFT holder, is that people are like, which NFT should I buy? And that's really similar to when, there was the whole ICO area where people were like, oh, well, what token should I buy, right? So I think with NFTs, there's a lot more of like an identity attached to it. But if we're not able to use super easy human searchable terms like, NFTs owned by celebrities or NFTs under a certain price or best NFTs right now, it's really hard for that exploration and that journey through NFTs to really be solved because it kind of stops at what knowledge the person has. So right now, the issue with the NFT space is that collections or all this type of stuff, they're trying to compete to be the only NFT that exists in a person's mind, right? And to be the funnel, but we want to do it through a place of exploration. Like naturally, people are interested in NFTs, and how can we kind of understand their journey throughout the entire ecosystem from the search bar?
Mm-hmm. I thought it was amazing, like the idea when you kind of pitched it to me, because like you could search, for instance, if you go into music NFTs, you could search by the genre. And at the moment, not to like bash on all the marketplaces, but like when you go to use them, the search functions are like terrible. If you're looking for like a specific art collection or something, it's not great. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's like that's actually not I don't find it as the marketplace's fault, because they're there to be a marketplace, right? And it's also not the people minting its fault either, because they're just there to mint NFTs. Like, metadata is something that is a type of technical knowledge that I think could be trickled down to just regular non-technical people. But you can think of metadata being as like the SEO to your NFTs. If we don't fundamentally know, what genre of music, how many beats per minute, associated artists, anything else that is like, good information that you should probably put in your metadata for your NFT, then it's just hard to kind of find. So we have an on and off-chain approach to this. The first one, which is the on-chain approach, is that we are creating a metadata standard aggregation tool that essentially goes, okay, what's all the available metadata standards out there? How do we put it into one place and one form, enrich all the different fields there so that we can add more to it, so that all different creators can go on there and be like, okay, well, I can just fill in all these different things. And it creates a link that they can then put into their metadata, and basically cleaning up like the tagging, the categorizing, and the details that is like included in that. So that's our on-chain method, right? Of just making sure that the metadata exists in the first place. And then our off-chain method is basically through our search engine. So as people are searching, NFTs are going to come up. Through their interactions with those NFTs, we're able to go, okay, well, we know that this term usually has this result, and we're able to then tie up that information outside of it. But what I'm trying to say is basically all our tools just kind of get sent up to our data layer in itself that the entire NFT ecosystem can use overall.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, honestly. And Luca, my question now actually for both of you is, firstly, did you ever expect to like, for you, Luca, is a bit different because I know you've like run other businesses. So the initial question is like, did you expect to be running businesses? Do you have this intention to be like a CEO? But then for you, Luca, I'll ask you first, did you ever think that you'd be running a company like in this space? And then also, what has been this like surprising parts of it? Has there been any issues that you're like, I didn't think this would be like this, or is the whole thing just completely unexpected?
It's definitely super interesting. So I think from a CEO perspective, if you would have asked me 12 months ago, I'd have probably said no, because Gel Blaster was kind of taking off. So like, we scaled really quick, really fast. But like as time kind of progressed, I felt like, maybe about 8 months ago, I was like, I want to get into this. Like, to me, this is the future, right? And I think it does a couple things. I think most importantly, it empowers people, right? It empowers creators. And that's something that's like, I'm really passionate about. I found early on, and I won't go into the story because I won't go into it, but I like found early on that money didn't make me happy, right? And somebody who grew up in a really unfortunate situation growing up, and like once I started making a lot of money, I thought money would kind of fill a void that it ended up not filling. And so like, pushing a Web3 company that's going to help push adoption and really try to push this space forward is something that, is super fulfilling for me, because for me, if NFTs and Web3 wins, then a ton of other creators and a ton of, artists and photographers and musicians and authors, no matter what it may be, a lot of those people are going to win with us, right? And we're going to help lead that charge. And so to me, that's really important. And so, from that perspective, I am super excited to be in this position and super grateful. And now it kind of feels like it was almost like my destiny, as weird as that may sound.
Can I ask you, like, I remember you saying before that you're not really driven by money anymore, because I thought like you've had all these successful businesses. Why would you now need to like take over Penguins, or why would you even need to get into NFTs? Why do anything? So now that you have like a purpose, I'm guessing, of not just money. So I'm guessing you're not really driven by the money aspect anymore. It's more like the achievement or the purpose. Do you feel like that changes now your decisions as like a CEO and like in running a company? Because you're no longer like driven just to increase profits, make the revenue. How has that like shifted your mindset? And then how does that like relate to Penguins? Because obviously, I guess now it's about focusing on the community maybe a bit more. So it's like quite a good match that you are now like driving the Penguins, I guess.
Yeah. So I feel like I have a fiduciary responsibility as like the CEO, and like, a bunch of other people on my team committing and, putting money into the project and like really investing their time and their energy into this direction. Like, I have a responsibility to make the company money and like to build a really profitable and lucrative business. So like, I think from my personal standpoint, where I stand with that is just like, I don't need to do something that's not in the best interest of the business because I am financially tied to the fact that I need to make money, So I think from a business standpoint, like, I'm here to build a profitable business. And at the end of the day, I'm here to build a multi-billion-dollar company, right? And like, to get there, like, I'm going to need some serious revenue and I'm going to need some serious profits. And so, but in the same breath, like, I'm not going to make a decision that is going to hurt the project or hurt other team members because I need to help pay the bills in some capacity, right? Like, I'm long past that. So I think from that perspective, it gives me an edge. I think we'll find like a lot of founders in the space are like first-time entrepreneurs, and they maybe got a taste of some of that mint money and they want more, and so they want to do it again, right? And so like, they're not doing what's in the best interest of their holders, they're doing what's in the best interest of their finances, right? And so like, I don't have that issue, but I definitely like am in the business of making money, right? Like, to get where I want to be, to build a legacy brand, like, you're not going to build a legacy brand that's not making any money, and so like, there's a thin line, but I'm definitely in the position where I am not going to make a fiscally irresponsible decision because for some reason I have a bill coming up at the end of the month that requires me to, pull money out of the community in some shape, way, or form. Definitely not in that scenario. So
yeah, I think I asked the question as well because I remember like last year, I feel like people hadn't run businesses before and they hadn't even like maybe, let's say, made a ton of money. So then the money becomes the driving factor. And I think a lot of NFT collections last year just like rushed through their roadmap because they know that it will pump the project, they'll make the most money. And then now I think they're struggling. So like, why you're in such a good position is you don't have that mad rush. You're obviously incentivized by money, but there's not that rush of like, I need to get rich, because you are rich. So you know what it's like, you know that it's not like the end goal. So I feel like it's been a really effective journey so far. Maxine, did you expect to end up in the position that you are, as you're CEO of Pulsr, right? If you could say that.
So this is the thing with Web3, or like the way that I've kind of been building Pulsr, like trying to organize it, is like, yeah, maybe I tweeted, and yeah, maybe I kind of like got everybody together and I've been kind of spearheading the thing. But I think by using words like founder and like CEO and all this type of stuff, it really takes away the opportunity for other people in the community to step up. And I think this is the thing about Web3, is like putting the egos aside, like as Luca said, like I think that all entrepreneurs out there are going through a stage of self-actualization. And that's really why I started my first company, right? Because I was like, I have something to prove, I'm so mad at the world, like all this type of stuff. But I made decisions with that type of intention of wanting to prove myself. But I think after that, I was like, you know what? Like, I just want to build cool things with cool people that see the same awesome things that are happening in the future. And it's just the energy, or like the fuel that's like fueling Pulsr now, is just so different. But I think I do try to stay away from those terms and try to be like more humble about it, because I'm like Luca, like we're thinking about this, not just what's happening tomorrow, but what's happening from a decade from now. Like I'm building Pulsr so that like in the next 50 years plus, like people are going to be able to find NFTs, because ultimately I think that NFTs are going to become the wrapper for all file formats of the internet as digital ownership becomes more and more popular. So yeah, I think that I might have started, but I'm expecting other people in the community to start their own things and to like go ahead. And that for me, it's actually a privilege to be here. And that you have to work damn hard to like make sure you stay in that position, right? So I think that the intention is different. Do I think it's highly experimental? Absolutely. Like, is there issues with it in itself? Sometimes. But I think that by kind of removing the identity aspect of it, of like, I'm the key person, and that actually nodding to the entire community, whether it's just them fixing a typo or people leaving their full-time jobs to join Pulsr, I have to respect every single person owning every single part of the contribution of making Pulsr happen.
But as part of that, like I spoke to you before, and you mentioned how like you feel it's important that Pulsr is seen as like a project rather than a company. How important do you feel like it is for everyone in the space, and I guess especially for Pulsr, to remain as like Web3? So I thought it was really interesting. You mentioned like instead of hiring people traditionally, they kind of, you wait for people to maybe like fill a role that then pushes the project forward. So how important, just as a whole, do you feel like it is to maintain Web3 kind of ethics, or is ethics the word? Web3 structure.
Well, vibes maybe. I don't know. So like the thing is, it's like building Pulsr is really like respecting the natural progression of something that's just purely inspiring. So if you look at something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, which were just open source projects that people contributed to over time, you do see that there's this organic, like, I'm going to build this, so if anybody wants to join, they can. And that's why like we have to open source our culture, our branding, the technology, the entire thing, so that you're opening up for other people to build on. And trying to kind of stay away from the mindset of like, this is mine and like nobody else can touch it. Because I think fundamentally, like, Web3 is the next internet. It's the next stages of the internet. So we need as many people building behind it, like not making it siloed, but instead working collaboratively together. So I'll go into like an example of this, like Pulsr just builds. Regardless, there's always going to be something like somebody or a community or a group of people building Pulsr. And we try to be as transparent as to what we're building. And this was the early stages. So back in August, I made a tweet, and then everybody was like saying, hey, this is a great idea. Then every single week I did just open syncs, right? So anybody could join at any time. And then you just find that people are interested or they're not. And then they get so interested that they start going, well, what about this and this and this? And just kind of like letting things organically flow. And right now, like, I would say that our largest way of getting people involved at like a more deeper level, being a core contributor or even like a guru at Pulsr, is mainly through Twitter and through Discord. people start reading the materials that we have at Pulsr. It's like, well, how about this and this and this? And usually when that starts, you can just tell when somebody kind of gets it and they start having their own ideas. And then we start inviting them to kind of more of our private things. But I think being as open and transparent as possible, giving the opportunity for other people to own different aspects of like the vision of Pulsr in itself, and just kind of respecting the natural order of organic growth has been like my largest and most different methodology in like building something, from like being in like a Web 2 kind of like, you know, crypto finance world, to being in, I guess now, like basically making like fixing NFT searching, in Web 3.
Mm-hmm. Luca, the same for you. Like, has this been a real transition for you, like moving from Web 2 to Web 3? I think I heard you the other day mention it's kind of like having stakeholders, but you don't. Like everyone is so involved. So how have you managed like the community? I think you've done a good job of it, but like, has it like been a learning cycle, I guess, for you from the start, getting everyone involved and like really focusing on the community and trying to give back value to them as well? And then also, how did you decide on hiring? So I know like you built a team kind of beforehand, but then also how do you now decide on hiring, like going forward? Who are the type of people that you look for? Is it like Web3 people, or do you not really mind having like Web2 people and then kind of like coaching them into it?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I think my core competency has kind of been, communication. So like, I don't really mind it too much. I think it's actually been super helpful. I think we kind of went on a sprint early on. And like, at the end of the day, like I'm here to build what the community wants me to build, right? Like I know I can be super efficient and super effective. And I know there's certain things that we have to do that are in the best interest of the company. But at the end of the day, like I'm here to fulfill the vision that the community as a whole, wants us to have. And so like, I think there's a core difference between a Web 2 and a Web 3 company. And I think that difference is really community and building with your community, right? In a Web 2 company, you have a community, but, they're not dictating, the direction. And so in this situation, I like to refer to it as like a publicly traded startup, which is exactly what it is, right? So it's a very unique business model, to say the least. It's been interesting. Like I knew what I signed up for. I think I have a unique edge in the sense that I think people are going to have a really hard time thinking that you can just drop a Web 2 accomplished person and drop them into a Web 3 company. I think our situation was a little bit different because I spent thousands of hours trading NFTs. So I really understand like what I wanted to see from a holder perspective. I saw, 30 plus times where projects went wrong. So I kind of know the formula. And I've also like done Venn diagrams of like every project from Yuga to Zuki. Like I have an idea as to like how they got there. And it really involves a multitude of different variables. One of those, right, really being the community. And so like, I know that I'm here to really like excel this vision that we have as a team, but I want to make sure that the community is in line with our vision, right? So like I came into this company, the first week and I told the community my vision and they steered me in a different direction. They said like, look, that's a cool vision, but this is a better vision. Like, this is what we think you should be doing. And I was like, as a leader, like, I'm not here to say, oh, community, your vision's wrong, my vision is right. Like we pivoted, and for the right reasons. I feel like I don't think we would be here today if we didn't make that pivot. I think from a hiring perspective, the core team, right, the C-level team that I brought in was really specific. Like I had worked with them for the last 5-6 years on different projects, and I knew they were all super elite in their respective fields, right? And so I made sure, like with this one, every business that I do, actually, I always say in the beginning, I'm going to make this the biggest thing in the world. And the last 3, I actually like did it, and I did it, right? And so this one was the first one where I actually put like 2.5, in this situation, $3 million. And it was definitely, going into a world that I wasn't really known in, right? Like in e-commerce, if I said, hey, I'm going to build the next great toy, it's going to be the biggest toy in 12 months. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Luca's about to do another one. Right. And so that's fine. But Web3, they're not really familiar with me yet. Right. So like, I'm putting my Web3 reputation on the line and saying like, I'm here to be number one, and we're going to be one of the biggest projects in the space, not only in Web3, but in Web2 as well. Right. So I knew from a C-level perspective, I had to bring an elite group because like I know where I'm strong and I also know where I'm weak. And I needed to make sure that I put the best people in positions to kind of fill in the gaps where I might lack some certain skill set. From a hiring though perspective, we're actually going really, really deep into the community hiring, right? So we have our community team like agents, PP, Burko, and I can't tell you enough how many times they've saved me from making an incorrect decision. And like, I just keep learning and I'm so amazed. And I tell them every day, I'm like, I love you guys. You guys have no idea, because they have such a strong finger on the pulse of like what our community is and like how they're feeling, and just like a plethora of different emotions that just like me not being in the Discord every hour of every day, I just wouldn't know. And so they've been a blessing. And so from a dev side, we took like, 15 community developers out of the Pudgy Penguins. And we like are doing like this little group and like kind of seeing which devs like work best with us and so on and so forth. And so you'd be surprised, and especially with Pudgy Penguins, it's one of those unique communities where like a lot of people in the community are like top tier talent in their own respect. Like it's one of those really finite groups. And I know, DeFi Sushi did her little graphic, and I know you guys at Nansen are familiar because you guys are all incredibly bright over there. But it's really interesting. I think there's very few communities, like some communities can have like, they're pulling marketing from like, different places that like aren't really like the audience you want. Those are the guys that are like sending you death threats in the mail, like Pudgy is not that. Like it's a lot of really high level, smart builders, people a part of big companies doing, really bright and advanced, men and women. So it's one of those situations where like, I don't need to go, like, obviously there's going to be a time where, you're going to have to expand your horizons. You're going to have to build outside of the community. And we're already doing that. Like there's a couple things that you just can't really necessarily go to the community for, like UGC people, right? Like user generated content, from an ad perspective for direct to consumer goods. Like I'm not going to go to the Penguin community for that. Like that is a very specific high level skill that like, only like a certain group of people can do that at a high level, right? It's not something you probably find in a Web3 community. But like developers, for example, like why go and try to find, poach maybe some Silicon Valley, like, developers when you have like probably some of the brightest development minds right in your community, right in the huddle, just sitting there waiting to dev. And so we picked like, 10 to 15 of we kind of recruited out of the community. And now we're doing like a little test trial for 2 weeks. And then hopefully, submitting some full offer salaries to a couple of members of the group. So.
Nice. Well, it sounds very good. I want to ask you as well. So, someone asked in the chat, so I'll ask it quickly actually. Why do you think, firstly, Luca, the Penguins have been doing so well when everything else is like getting completely wrecked?
So it's interesting, right? Like I told the Penguins that in August we'd put our flag in the ground, right? Like if you participate in the Inner Igloo meetings, I said there would be a Penguin summer back in June, and in July, at the end of July, I said like, look, August is really where we're going to put our flag in the ground. And so like momentum is an interesting thing. And to be honest, there's a formula on how you can really build these companies. And, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this, but there's a formula to gaining momentum. We'll just say that. And I've done it twice now, and I feel like I have a good finger on the pulse on how to garner momentum, right? But at its foundation, I really think it's just like empowering the community. Like we do a lot of things to get people excited and to get them talking, right? It's really an attention retention business, just as much as anything else. Like if people are not entertained, like you're going to lose momentum and you're going to lose traction. Like, I don't know how you could just like not, openly and constantly communicate and try to like, within good reason, right? Like the Penguin community doesn't want to be sooned. I think that's like a specific one. So, with everything within reason without sooning people, I think is super important. But from a foundational perspective, it's really just about empowering a group of people, right? And so there's a couple members in the huddle that know what we're doing. But, at its core, I'm not going to dive into it because I kind of like it. It's my secret sauce for now, at least. But it really is just empowering them to engage and to, be a part of something and also deliver it, right? Like, I don't want people to underestimate the fact that like we've been grinding our tail off or our flippers off for the last 6 months. Like we've really been working hard, and like a lot of that stuff was setting the foundation, a lot of things that like weren't really catalysts, but I think were really important, right? Like, you know, a lot of things that just like took a lot of time, but like a lot of people just didn't notice. But now when you have big moments where all your eyes are on you, you look proper, right? Like we are aligned, like, you know, from Pudgy Media to the website to like the verifications and the usernames. I mean, it was a mess when we came into this. It was like, there was no brand alignment. I spent 2 months just aligning the brand, right? Instagram was Pudgy_Penguins. Twitter was Pudgy.Penguins. It was just it was a disaster. Like there was no way that that was going to succeed, you know? And so a lot of it was just like unwinding the mess and like really just laying the foundation so that like when this exposure came, when our momentum came, like you'd put, you know, our assets next to the competition and you'd be like, oh, like this stuff is just better. Like they're doing a better job, right? And so, you know, kudos to the team. The credit really isn't mine. The credit is to like this group of people that all just came in here and committed. And, you know, like I mentioned, you know, I think I mentioned it a couple of times, but, you know, most of us aren't getting salaries. We're doing this because we believe in the brand so much. And like, you know, a lot of us have sacrificed so much to really be in this position, to really give this our all. And so it's a team effort. And not only from our team specifically, but from the community as well. You know, there's some people in the community that really spend hours pushing the Pudgy Penguin narrative. And I'm so thankful for them. I'm so grateful for that. And it just can't be underestimated. I think it's just like one of those unique scenarios in life where you just have complete alignment on every spoke of the wheel, right? From the community to the team, to our vision, to, you know, our product strategy, to how we're positioning the brand and our messaging and our branding. And I think it's all just coming together, and people are finally like if you look at Pudgy Penguins and you look at everything compared to the rest, like, you're going to really tell me that there's 5 better projects right now that are like better than what we've got? Like, I'm a trader. I sit here all day. I know what's going around. Like I'd be shocked if you did, you know? And so that's just kind of how I feel.
Yeah, definitely. And Maxine, I want to ask you in like the similar way. So with this market kind of being down, has that influenced you? Like obviously you're launching Pulsr. So has it like changed? Have you slowed down? Have you sped up? How is this like market being down influenced you? And then did you kind of feel like this was part of the parcel anyway, that like it's a volatile market, so you just continue on as you were?
Yeah, I mean, I think having had the hindsight of just being in the space for so long, that I'm just used to like the ups and downs now. And it just kind of, I don't even consider it as a part of something like a consideration for when I'm building. But when you are building, of course, you're going to try to line up announcements or, you know, updates depending on when the market is up or down, because that's usually where the retention and the attention is, right? So I don't think it like slows down development at all, because you are focusing on kind of that like long-term growth over time. But I think the only thing is, I actually find it refreshing because at least it's quiet and you don't have people kind of like running around and like causing like all this noise. And it's like, it's easier for people, I think, to really find the projects that are building real stuff because they care, not just because there's like this massive gold rush going on. So I personally don't think that it affects anything. I think that people that can't survive through these types of dips are probably not like built for this space and this scene in general. And also it's a really good time to just start like making friends, and like the connections that you start making right now, when the dips are going, or like any sort of business or like anything that happens now is just kind of amplified over time. So I've kind of learned that looking, like not really relying on the hype to make sure that you have a good product or a good idea, and to essentially, if you can build the network in the community during these down periods, and you're actually in a really, really good position when there is the hype and the interest over time.
Yeah. Have you felt like that as well, Luca? Has it changed like anything that you're like driving towards? I know that maybe you like delay announcements a bit, so you feel like you want to do it when the market is good, because otherwise it feels a bit wasted. And then also, especially for you, and Maxine, I want to ask you as well, if you're talking to people outside of the space, like maybe investors or people, potential partners, has this like really affected, I guess you wouldn't know because maybe you came into it just before the crash, which is unlucky, Luca. But yeah, has that affected like how they've then spoken to you or how attracted they are to like working with NFT companies? And then just in general, what is it like to go and pitch like an NFT project or company or whatever to someone that knows like nothing about it, but you feel like they should, or like you feel like you could make a good partnership with them?
Yeah, so I think again, like our standpoint is like a little bit contrarian to most. Like when I talk to a major partner, it's not like, oh, hey, we're the biggest, top 25 NFT project in the world. I think it's like part of the pitch, but it's really like, hey, like here's a brand that people are loving. Here's our parabolic growth in terms of like engagement and views and follower growth. Like here's this brand that is all about mental health awareness, helping people, positivity, good vibes, right? And like, do you want to align yourself with this? It's less about like, oh, here's an NFT and like, let's do that. Because again, it's still taboo. It's still intimidating. So to me, I'm doing deals with people the same way I would do deals with Gel Blaster or the same way I would do deals with Von Dutch. Like it's the same type of deals that I would do there. Obviously the positioning is different, right? And the brands that we're talking to are different, but the concept's still the same. Like, I think just like harping in, like, I'll give you an interesting analytic. But on our Instagram, right, we had Web3 in the bio. NFTs and Web3 were in the bio. And we were getting like 80 cents a follower CAC, right? So like I'm like this, if I'm spending $1,000 on marketing, I'll look back how many followers I got. Okay, I got 800 followers or 1,000 followers, and there's my CAC, right? I took off NFTs and Web3 in my bio. My CAC goes from 80 cents to 31 cents. Like people don't want that right now. And that's okay. I don't need to give it to them right now. Bring them in, let them fall in love with the Pudgy Penguin IP, right? And then just educate them on what the space is because they don't know any better, right? And our content is perfectly positioned to do that. Like if you see on Instagram, like I'm a couple months away from just like every other couple posts, just it being like an NFT informal, like, content piece, right? So I think from that perspective, I'm not positioning it like, hey, this is NFT, this is Web3. Like the community knows it, our side knows it. I think that's important. But if we really want mass adoption, and I think this is where Pudgy Penguins is going to beat everybody else, like I'm going to be able to put this in more places and build cooler products than everyone. Like that I'm confident in because like that's my specialty. It's what I've been doing for the last 5-6 years. So I know I'm going to be in major retailers. I know and I'm really going to lead the charge there. And we have some interesting things on what we want to do in that regard. But that's really where I think we're going to really bridge the gap and make people fall in love with Pudgy Penguins the same way they would fall in love with, Hello Kitty or, any of the other great IPs that exist in the world.
Mm-hmm. How do you plan? Like, is your plan to convert people? So let's say that we have like these plushy toys or whatever for penguins. Is your intention then that like each individual penguin, then the value goes up because they appreciate it because like the value, because they've got these toys or whatever, so people think they're cool, they want to own the original? Or do you want the NFTs to be like a way of feeling part of a club, and then you extract the value from this revenue? So like you basically earn from the company doing well, or is it that your asset appreciates because the company's doing well? So like, what is the two avenues? Oh no, what is the one avenue of those two that you'd go for?
It's actually both, right? So if we license a penguin from the community, there's a royalty. So we negotiate some sort of deal with the community member in terms of like what that looks like. And then obviously, naturally, right, if a toy really takes off and it's in big box and it's on shelves, like that penguin is naturally, more desirable than the next penguin. And we're actually going to be posting something like this weekend. I'll give you guys a lot more insight as to like how this is working. And probably while we're on this call, there'll be an announcement that is fairly significant within the next 5, 10, 15 minutes. Sorry, that's why I've been looking at my phone. I'm just texting our CMO and going back and forth and doing that. But a lot of people might listen to me and be like, oh, well, it sounds like he really wants to build a really big Web2 business. But a lot of people are misinterpreting like really our passion or desire as to like how we're building this business, right? Like every deal that we do, every product that we release, holders will benefit from that in some capacity, right? Now, it won't be every single holder, but eventually we'll get there. But there's going to be a chance that if you hold a Pudgy Penguin, that like if I do a toy deal or a toy takes off, or if we do, in this scenario, I might as well say it because by the time it releases, it'll be news, right? But a children's book, right? Like in some capacity, if those do really well, those products do really well, that will come back to the community in some capacity because the characters in that book or the characters for that toy are going to be licensed directly from them. Like my dream is like, if I close my eyes and think about like, where's my vision for Pudgy Penguins? I think from a really like high level standpoint, like if we're doing $500-600 million a year in revenue from our physical goods standpoint, and 150 million is going back to holders in terms of licensing arrangements, that's the most beautiful story Web3 has ever told, truthfully, right? Like that's really building a brand and building a company, because when you look at it from a brand perspective, like what brand is built without some sort of core consumer product good? I think there's maybe 15 or 20 brands that don't have a staple consumer product good that can quantify themselves as brands, right? But everybody in the NFT space is like, we're a brand. And I'm like, well, where's your staple consumer product good? Like, what are you known for? Well, if you don't have a core staple consumer product good, then your core product is your NFT. And having your core product as an NFT is a recipe for disaster, right? Because if Ethereum goes to 300, your core product is like worth 1/10 of what it was, 2 months ago. And there's too many variables you can't control for your NFT to be your core product. It's like literally almost impossible unless you just want to continuously do that rat race. I have no interest in that. I have an interest in, building the NFT value and bringing value to the holders. Yes, but I have no interest in building my business off of Ethereum royalties. Right? Like that's going to be like a disaster, right? Like that's like seeing a rocket, like a meteorite and just like not moving, just like watching it like fall down from the sky and like crushing upon you. I've been through crypto winter. I felt it already. I have no interest in feeling that again. Right. And so like, I think there's a really great blend that not a lot of people are leaning into, where you can build a really awesome Web2 business, but really make it a Web3 business by incorporating your holders in some of the decisions, right? Like what are the toys that we're making, right? What is some of the context of the children's book? Like get them involved. And also if those products do really, really well, they're going to benefit from it in some capacity. I mean, my goal is 5 years from now, all penguins are licensed, right? And so like, that's going to be like a huge initiative. Now, it has to be within the guidelines of our brand and our brand integrity, because what I can do, and I feel like some people may make this mistake, is just license everything and do every deal that comes across my desk. Like I've turned down maybe 10 deals already, right? That like either came to us or our head of partnerships hustled up in some capacity. But like making sure that your product line is like not diluted and not like and loses integrity is really important, right? Because the second that happens, you're just like a Kmart, discount product, which like we have no interest in being.
Yeah, I want to ask as well. So Maxine, in terms of like providing value for your community, you explained to me like how Pulsr intends to do that. So I don't know if you want to touch on like the token aspect of Pulsr. Is that really revealing too much now that I've said that? I don't know. Maybe I've like revealed something. But yeah, what is the?
No, I mean, I can definitely talk about things like on a higher level. But I think like the core point here that Luca touched on was that like people tend to make the mistake with Web3 with like leading with the technology and not what the actual value is, right? So it's like, first and foremost, like I saw this like with like all the tokens and all this type of stuff where people are like, oh yeah, it's like Bitcoin mining and all this type of things, which is like really interesting to technical people, but not actually speaking to people that you want them to use that technology. So at Pulsr, like we don't like to lead with the tech that we're doing. We like to lead with what exactly it is that we're solving for that key person. And when we were thinking about kind of the business model of like true Web3 projects out there, because I think there is a transition. There's like Web 2.5, which is, I would say, Web 2 companies that are utilizing certain aspects of Web 3. And then there's people who I think are trying to be at the bleeding edge of Web 3, which is maybe where Pulsr is more at the more kind of experimental side of going, okay, well, how do we first and foremost build in a way that everybody can get involved? How can we then create revenue from this that feeds into the community itself? And then how do we incentivize utility through ownership? So an example of that is that when people are searching through on Pulsr, they're able to earn Pulsr voting tokens, which essentially rewards them for participating in the network. And these different types of activities could be that, let's just say that there's a new metadata standard that's out there. They click on an NFT, and these fields are actually missing from that NFT. If they fill in those fields and you're technically improving the metadata of this type of NFT, then you should be rewarded for that. So the more you accumulate the Pulsr voting tokens as you use it, the more say you have in the direction of where Pulsr is going to go. And the core team takes these voting tokens as a way for us to really understand, like as Luca said, like you have to listen to the community. Like first and foremost, the community is what drives this whole thing in terms of the direction that things are going to go. So I would say that like for Web3 companies right now, or like projects, whatever you want to call them, they're really trying to focus on creating true value around the token, right? Instead of thinking about the business model. So I could have easily built Pulsr to be like, okay, well, amazing search engine for NFTs that relies on ads. So, we might do, there might be projects out there, NFT projects that want to essentially shill their NFT project. We could have just taken money from them, put that in an ad, and that would be a very, I would say, easy way to monetize Pulsr. But we have to, again, like think outside of this typical box of like, okay, well, this is the consumer. How do I kind of squeeze money out of the consumer and make it more meaningful? And for us at Pulsr, it's when it comes to this token, it's about understanding that value is not just financial. It's not just like, when is token going up? Oh, like, why is my token not making money? All this type of stuff. And understanding that tokens can be a representation of different types of value. And for Pulsr, it's having a voice. It's being able to have a decision in what the future of your search engine is going to look like. It could be also the ability to stake your tokens. But I think we have to kind of start removing this mentality that like, if you have a token, it has to be financial based, because the value can actually be derived from, social capital. It could be from governance capital and all this type of stuff. So that's as much as I can say. But I think the key thing here is trying to look at participation as transaction activity, and then trying to then reflect that in the value of a token and what people can do with that token in its entirety.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing. Someone asked as well, like I've asked you the same question. So they say, do you feel like Pulsr will be the Google of NFTs? I think you gave a good answer. So what is your like answer to that question? I feel like you'll get that a lot.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's like, I'm greatly inspired by what Bitcoin did and what Ethereum did, because they released a technology that anybody can build on. And that's what I want to do with Pulsr. And people can mistake with, Pulsr being a search engine and being like, oh, they're trying to be the Google of NFTs and they're trying to like own that part of the space. But actually, Pulsr as a search engine is just a directory for the entire NFT ecosystem. Like, we don't want to be a marketplace and all this type of stuff. We just want to go, okay, you're searching for this, this is where it is. And then now you can essentially go to that marketplace or that network or whatever it is that you can actually source and buy and like interact more with that NFT. At the end of the day, like, we are a open source data layer for any single platform out there to harness, to empower the searchability of NFTs. So you could be a marketplace, you could be a PFP project, whatever it is. But if you care about your NFTs being searched or the experience of somebody finding an NFT, you'd be able to utilize Pulsr's like open source data layer for that. And we just kind of build the different tools to be able to encapsulate that data and like send it to what we call like the fabric, which is what that layer is in itself. I'm not saying that there isn't any sort of revenue plan that isn't like baked into these tools, but the idea is that all of these types of revenues are going into like the treasury that then are able to be like fully funding this kind of like organic way of research and developing all these different ideas that we're getting from the community itself to create what our end vision is, which is, okay, metadata standards suck. Finding NFTs is really difficult. What are all the different creative solutions we can do so that we can gather information and data and send it up to the fabric so that the entire ecosystem benefits from it overall?
I asked this question, like, I think a couple of weeks ago to someone else, because this sounds like to me something that is pretty much essential for the space. do you both feel like there is still a lot more like innovation to come in this space? Because at the moment it can feel like everything's done. Like I asked it last time in the context of DeFi, but then in the context of NFTs, do you feel like we're so far from done? So like even just like use cases of NFTs, obviously mainly now we're like in art and PFPs and everything, but then you've mentioned before, Maxine, like genres of music and everything. So do you feel like we're still way off like actual use, like the best use cases of NFTs?
Yeah, we're not done until the whole world is using NFTs. Like that's my perspective. Like there are many people in the world that are, like do not even know what an NFT is. And again, it's about like not really leading with the technology. It's about leading with the use case. So like in Pulsr's point of view, like the use case is that more and more artists are going to start creating NFTs because it's a way for them to have digital ownership. And that's going to bring in like a lot of interest of people who don't even know what an NFT is. So we kind of want to bridge the gap between that. But I think we have so far to go. I don't even think people really understand like how far NFTs can go. I do think that there's kind of the main pillars that people are now building out and expanding. But until like these things are being used every single day, I don't think it will ever stop, to be honest. But that's just my point of view. I don't know what Luca thinks.
Yeah. Luca, actually, as part of the question to you, do you feel like as the penguins as an NFT, do you feel like there's still so much utility and so much that you can build on? So like, for instance, you integrated, I know it's separate to the NFT, but you've given to people the soulbound tokens and things like this. So is there still so much that you have planned to build on, or do you feel like these ideas will just kind of pop up as time goes on?
Yeah, so I think the space in general, we're just getting started. I think the age of the boring NFT is going to come, and it's going to really, help build the infrastructure that a lot of our products, from a consumer product side, I think it's going to be huge. From the Pudgy Penguin side, I can tell you our CTO Lorenzo is building some of the coolest stuff, and I think it's really innovative in terms of some of the stuff that he's building. And we're not taking this side of the business lightly, right? So I think, we kind of have departments in our company, right? And certain people spearheading certain things. And Lorenzo's really owning the NFT, Web3, pushing the boundary side. And what he's got cooked up is really special. And so I'm really looking forward to rolling those products out in the coming months. And I think you guys will be really stoked by what he has to show.
Because we've only got like 5 minutes left, I wanted to ask you if there's like, so for you, Maxine, I think it'll be more talking about maybe the release date of Pulsr, when you think like all these things are going to be fully in place. And then for Luca, I guess, is there any like alpha that you'd be willing to give? Maybe you can't give specifics, but is there things that are like coming up soon that you could give vague hints on? And also I thought I'd ask you, so you put out that picture of like the advisory board, which Alex is on, our CEO. But also there's someone hidden, which is like celebrity. Can you give us a clue to who it is, or is that not allowed?
Alex is texting me. He's like, look, man, let me know. I'm like, dude, you have the sheet. You could figure it out if you wanted it to. And I told him, I got to keep that one close to the chest for the short term. So I think it keeps it exciting. Like, I think part of the, one of the variables that I've deducted from like all the successful projects is just keeping their community engaged and excited, right? Like if I just let you know that, a week after I posted it, like it leaves a little bit of the fun out. Like I want, like, we thought about it internally. We're like, well, like, we can let it be known now, but I think the advisory board was like cool in and of itself. Like, let's keep it exciting. Let's keep it fun, right? Let's just keep people talking about it. I think there's really no rush in that regard. We'd obviously post it, in sometime relatively soon, but I think for now, we're going to keep that to ourselves. No alpha other than, we're probably 30 seconds away from our CMO tweeting our children's book and licensing those penguins for that children's book. So Alex, make sure you submit that penguin so we can maybe see you on hardcover pretty soon.
Okay, absolutely. Someone says, actually, second question as part of it, everyone in the chat saying, is it Joe Rogan? Because he mentioned penguins. Have you seen anyone guess it right yet? That's what I want to ask.
Have I seen anyone guess it right? Yes, I have.
Oh, okay. Wait, let me ask you, where? Is it in Discord?
No.
Okay, I'm not getting anything else out of you. Okay, fair enough. Maxine, when do you feel like Pulsr is ready to go? Have you got a plan for this to be released?
Yeah, so we have a membership program with the community. So when people have been like really early supporters of us, we usually release our beta to them as it's improving. And pretty much in a couple of weeks, open beta will be going to the OG members first and the pre-beta members, because really like our community is our like solutions and QA engine. So we like to kind of do little experiments here and there, send it out to the community and see what their feedback is. And then once they're kind of happy with it, then we, get a release date for when we think it's ready to go. And I know like Luca said that he hates the word sooning, but very soon. Our community has seen it and they're really, really enjoying it right now. But it's just not something that you can like push out there. Like there is a certain amount of foundation that you have to get right. So we're tweaking it. We're making sure we're getting enough feedback on it so that it's the right thing. And yeah, basically in a month or so, I think open beta will be ready for the public.
Oh, I think that's super exciting. I will be trying it. Everyone has to go try it. I think that's basically it for the episode. I feel like we could ask something else. We've only got a few minutes. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining. Everyone go and follow Pulsr. Go follow Pudgy Penguins. We have a giveaway because Pulsr are amazing. Maxine's done an amazing thing and like given away a Pudgy Penguin. I think I've put the link actually in our description. So you can just go to that tweet. You just have to retweet it. Follow the relevant accounts and you're entered, to win a Pudgy Penguin, which is worth a lot nowadays. So yeah.
Yes, it is. Can I tell you guys something? So I used to be a Pudgy Penguin and I didn't know Luca was coming onto the team and I kind of like lost a bit of my hopes for what Pudgy Penguin was happening. And then I sold my Pudgy Penguin and then Luca was announced as the new CEO and I was like, what the hell? And now I'm just kind of like sitting outside the igloo and like waiting to be let back in again.
You have to get back in, you have to buy another one, but you're giving one away, so everyone forgives you. Surely everyone forgives you. But yeah, that's it pretty much. Do you want to say anything either of you? You've got like 1 minute. No,
we good.
Okay, perfect. Everyone subscribe. I'll see you next week. We got Ledger from Up Only, like I said, which is amazing. I might even bring CMS Intern on for that as well, so it might be 3 of us, but we'll see, not definite. And yeah, office hours each Wednesday. If you want to sign up to Nansen, we have got a up to 40% discount on Nansen plans. That's for you too as well, to go and take a look at that. And yes, thank you everyone. Have a great weekend and bye-bye.
Thanks, intern.